anxiety.
Horse around.
Can you be more
ideas?
Be more specific?
Oh, like, okay, so for instance, you...
There's an airbag for that. You want to comment on that? No. I'm sorry?
The single horse who's used to, barnacle with his pals.
Right. Okay. Would you like to hear from a specific person, or shall I pick?
Doesn't matter.
A separation issue.
Nobody.
We don't know what to do. We sell it to you. Yeah. You want me to say that?
I'll start things off. I encounter this quite a bit when I break in horses, because they come in and herd, and you've got to understand that a horse is a herd animal. When you watch the Monty Roberts videos, they rely on coming back to you, and so I think you do have to break that, and I think to a degree all horses want to be with their buddy, and you have to, I think you have to find a way to separate them, so that they get confidence and realize that they don't have to be together all the time. I mean, I know that sounds very simple, but whether it means putting them on the other end of the barn, if you've only got a small barn, you might have to put the other one in another paddock somewhere else. But I think if you're talking about just winning and wanting to be together all the time, I mean, it's a pain in the neck. You go to the event, they're crying out to each other, and that. I mean, over time it gets better, but I think you do have to address it, and basically separate them from the herd so they get some confidence about being on their own.
That has kind of, let's say, I don't want to call it necessarily a loose front end, but maybe a lack of awareness about his or her front end. And what would you ever keep that horse, providing it with exercises that might tighten up that front end, or is that something that's not upper level appropriate?
I think that I've definitely brought on horses that the first season of their jumping didn't impress me in their front end, and I think that one of the big things you have to take into consideration is whether they have the scope or the ability to throw a good jump through the rest of their body, how they use their top line, how they use their hind end, and what their instincts are when they get into trouble. I find that a horse who has a tendency or an instinct to jump up with its center of gravity, to raise its wither and lift its body up out of trouble, can often be taught how to use their legs in a more orthodox manner. And it comes down to a little bit more how quick they can be with their feet, more than how pretty in a hunter sense they can be with their front end. At a point, you have to make sure in your training exercises that you are teaching them how to react in an imperfect situation. And in other words, if they got really, really deep to that A element of the coffin at Rolex, could they get themselves out of trouble even if it wasn't the picture that's going to go on the front of the eventing magazine? And I think that that's very important in kind of assessing. But I've had horses that started with wacky jumps, and after the first 3 months or so of their training, turned into quite amazing athletes. So, I think
I've ridden a few leg danglers, and that's sort of how my career started off. Once I set up on my own, I'd go around the top guys asking them for their chuck out, anything they didn't want to ride, I wanted to ride, and often that would be because obviously they'd fallen a few times on the trot. One in particular horse that was called Jungle Diva Blue, he'd fallen 4 times on the trot before I got him, and I did have 4 proper good falls off him. But again, I think it depends what your aim in life is, aim in the sport is, because I think that in my mind I didn't have a choice living out of eventing. then I'd ride anything that anybody was willing to pay me to ride. And from that, tried to learn, you know, ways, techniques of you know, improving the horse's technique. Again, Flint Curtis definitely throughout his career would have given me a few fairly shocking rides front end wise, but these are generally horses that have been given later on in their career, and I think you can improve them, but you also definitely change your riding style. You've had a good few smacks. Obviously I wasn't expecting the one in Becky, but I can't remember that anyway. But I think that you can improve horses, but again, it's down to rider preference. You know, it doesn't worry me to ride horses that are loose in front, cross country, because, as I said, I've had a lot of success on those sort. But at the same time, if you're a one-horse rider, you can improve them. But if it's something that you're not comfortable with, if you're not comfortable with it, your riding is not going to benefit from riding one of those. So either get rid of it, or you know, or make the decision in your mind that it's definitely that he is becoming better and better throughout his career. And the other thing is, some horses love to stand up and some horses lay down, and learned that a lot as well. You know, like one of the most successful four-star horses, Lord Killinghurst with Andrew Nicholson. You've never seen anything at home jump as low, but Andrew worked on his mind and sort of kidded him along that he was slightly more talented than he was, and he was that confident in Andrew that he jumped umpteen clears around 4 stars. So there's no right or wrong answer, but I think that it's down to your preference on where you want to get to in life. And if you don't like the idea of getting wheeled off occasionally, then get rid.
It's not so bad, it's more how he leaves the ground. And what I would walk away from if you're trying a horse is a horse that leaves his front legs but hesitates when he jumps. Because I think then you're going to get in trouble in cross country. But if you've got a horse that jumps a bit awkward or over himself but is very sharp and crisp off the ground, I think that's more than, you know, that wouldn't be something that would stop me buying a horse. But if it comes to the jump and always jumps it well but hesitates before it jumps, I think you've got a bit of work ahead of you there for that kind of horse.